Hey, everybody, this is Boris Schlossberg. Welcome to the Trading Battle and our series of continuing stories and shows on prop trading. It's a topic that's near and dear to a lot of people and has become very, very hot in the industry. Today, I have two very special guests for a return appearance. We have Austin Silver out of Austin, Texas, I guess.
No. Florida, Boris. Florida. Come on.
I'm sorry, Florida. I always keep thinking this.
It's okay. I'll let you slide.
And Nick Syiek from Atlanta, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. All right. So two Southern boys today. We're going to talk prop trading, which is always a topic of great interest and discussion for everybody. I want to start sort of like with the first question, which is, does passing a prop challenge get easier over time? What do you say, Nick? Like, first of all, how many props have you had a chance to pass?
So this is going to be a unique take because I actually have not spent a lot of time actually doing prop firm challenges or anything like that. I'm in a fortunate enough situation just with past businesses that I've started and trading for a number of years now. Got the capital behind me, so I don't need the funding per se.
Nice humble brag. Okay,
it's a humble brag. No, but really, I think like it is important to sort of know, like, I'm gonna try and give you the best answer that I can from my position in terms of prop firms getting easier to study. So I actually, or to pass, I've studied some of my results over. On my FX book account, I tracked sort of my numbers for an entire year, and I tracked of 12 months. How many months with my stats would I have been able to pass a prop firm examination? I studied.
Okay, now let's sort of like, what is the standard prop firm examination? Would that be 10% up, 5% drawdown?
Yes.
Round one, that's it. It's kind of like that would be your rule, because they all have like different rule sets.
Yes, exactly. So what you just said, I use something similar to that. We're not name dropping here per se today, but I went and cross-examined to a couple of different ones. And I basically was like, okay, I had these stats out of 12 months. How many months would I pass these examinations? And I calculated about 4 out of the 12 months, I would have been able to pass an examination. And that stat is an interesting one to take by itself. I've been trading for 5 years. I wouldn't claim I'm the best trader in the world, but I think I'm decently experienced within what I'm doing. So I've done a lot of, I've done my homework on this stuff for a number of years, as you guys have as well. So for me, hitting 4 out of 12, I felt like, okay, did it get easier over time? The answer for me is kind of. I've gotten to a point where I have a consistent approach that I use over and over, but the ones that I passed, the examples that I passed or would have hypothetically passed a examination were all during months where volatility expanded and I was able to catch some really nice runners. That, though, by itself is not something that I can predict. And, it's hard to, with anything when it comes to markets, it's hard to tell when the Dow is going to run for 6 weeks straight or if things are going to go into a range for a month. So to me, that's one thing I would say. It doesn't necessarily get easier, but if you have your methodologies and you've learned your approach and you've been consistent in what you're doing and you're improving as a trader in general, you're probably going to be more likely to pass, if that makes sense, just by improving your skills over time. That would be my answer.
Interesting. So Austin, wouldn't that speak to, it's basically much more to do with Nick's strategy than it is with the passing rate, because Nick is a home run hitter, right? Like you said, he's not going to be hitting a lot of contact, but when he does, he's going to hit a lot of runners. That, by the very essence of that strategy, means he makes rare but big hits, and that's where he makes the majority of his P&L. Which, by the way, it sort of makes perfect sense if you sort of think about it. 4 out of 12 is 33%, which is like when you're going for doubles or triples, in terms of risk. If you're going for 2R, 2.5R, 33% is where you want to be, because that's the profitable level. Yeah. But for guys like us who are bunters, who try to get on base every day. Right. And we're talking World Series before the show, so might as well keep the baseball
Go Phillies
going. Sorry, guys, I have to apologize to everybody. I am like recovering from yet another bout with COVID, so I'm going to be coughing a little bit through the show. I'm fine, but forgive me. Anyways, Austin, for guys like us who are much more short-term oriented, what kind of a does it get easier, I guess, and what kind of a record do you think those type of people will get?
So I like Nick's answer, and I think if you take the other side of it, depending on your strategy, that's really going to be the driving factor with how many challenges you can get done. So for guys like you and me, I'm going to pull up my statistics so I have numbers to reference. Since July 11th, today is October 24th, I've had 50 trades, only 8 losses. So I'm winning 84% of my trades. So I don't need a 3 or 4 to 1 risk reward. I need 1 to 1. And I think what I've had a really good confluence or conjecture, whatever word you want to use, a good mixture coming together for me right now is me seeing those statistics and then also seeing my average trade only goes about 2.5 R. Plus, with current market conditions making me kind of more of like a snag and bag trader, that's allowed me to move through and have other guys that I'm working with move through funding challenges quickly. Now, like I said, first, I agree with Nick. You're never going to pass a funding challenge every month. I've never seen anybody do that. But to take the other side of his point, if 4 out of 12 months, I'm going to be profitable enough to get this thing done. How much money is it going to take invested in these funding challenges, these prop challenges? Is it then going to be, let's say, just use round numbers. Let's say it takes $20,000 because you fail a couple and you have to rebuy them. And let's say they're $1,000 each. Let's say it takes you, let's go even less, say $10,000 over the course of a year. Is having $100,000 of capital worth $10,000 of potential losses? To some people, it might be. So even in Nick's situation where he trades completely different risk reward, completely different strategy, it's still possible if you just look at the numbers like that. So I think the strategy is the driving factor that will determine how easy is it to continuously pass funding challenge. And then also I would say adapting the strategy like I have. Like I'm not trading the same entry signals I was 2 years ago. In 2020 and 2021, breakouts were the thing. Breakouts have not been working for me. So I adapted. You have to adapt. If you don't, that's what I think makes getting funded hard, is when you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole because markets have changed and you haven't. And that's where it gets tough.
Now, Nick, you have a lot of people in your Discord, right?
Sure.
You have thousands of people in your Discord. Are any of them passing? Like, have you had experience with some of your traders passing prop challenges? What's been the experience with them?
Yeah, so we have quite a number of people who are actively trying to get funded. So one thing I always try and clarify is like I'm not like anti-prop firm per se. I think and to Austin's point too, I hadn't really thought about it that way, but it's actually a really good way of thinking about it if you approach it with like I don't go for big winners. Like for me, that's where I find my edge. And I know that that's not for everybody because not everybody wants to lose most of the time. That kind of sucks. But for me, it pays out because I'm able to catch the occasional like big story trade is what I call them. Like I've been really long on the dollar and that's been huge. But yes, people inside of my Discord, on the YouTube comments and Telegram, there's a huge community of people who are trying to actively get funded, probably why these series have been popular. And to people that say that, or to people who approach funding, I'm not the kind of person to say like, just don't try. It's pointless to do. Like I would never shut that down because to many people, it's actually a really reasonable opportunity, especially if they've proven like we talked about earlier, we each analyzed our stats and we discussed our stats. Most people who are trying to get funded are not even thinking that far. They're just saying, oh yeah, screw it. I'd take a 100K account to trade, but they're not actually reviewing their own trading approach. They're not reviewing their performance and saying, well, how likely am I actually to get funded? Right. So I think getting funded and taking steps to it is an amazing thing if you have the stats to back it. Again, I think we talked about this last time, but we discussed like a lot of people shouldn't be trying to get funded yet. They should be focusing on building that edge and finding it before trying to jump the gun, if you will.
Austin, like this actually makes me realize, remember the saying, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep, right? It also makes me realize that getting funded is just step one. Like a lot of people will get funded, but if you're in a sort of a push-pull environment where you have a good month, bad month, good month, bad month, you get funded, you're going to lose your money. Like the critical thing is, I think, is if you're not trading with the kind of risk control during your funding process, you will most certainly lose it in your real money process in the next month. And then what's the point? You have 100,000 for a month. You need to have 100,000 for years.
Right. And then you need to scale it. I would say you need to scale. 100,000 really isn't enough nowadays, to be honest. Like if you get into trading, you don't get into trading just to trade a 6-figure account. Nobody's like, I think everyone has bigger goals than that, especially if you're going the route of taking something seriously. But when you said that, Boris, it made me think like trading is hard. And I think Nick will definitely agree with me on this one. Focus is the difference maker. The guys that focus stay funded. The guys that lapse in focus, call it discipline, whatever I like the word focus better. When you lapse in focus, you lose your funded account. And I speak from experience. I am funded and I have lost funded accounts because I took a Friday trade, held it over the weekend and lost. And it was Bitcoin and it wiped me out and I had to retake a funded challenge to get it back. So I'm speaking from real experience where you lapse in focus at one moment. After passing phase 1, passing phase 2, feeling like I'm on my high horse, confidence goes to a high. You trade on a Friday, you get stuck in. I actually got stuck in the trade. It wasn't an intentional hold. They closed the market at 4:45. Lapse in focus. Wasn't really aware of my prop firm's rules. Instead of 5 o'clock, so 15 minutes early, whatever. It's their rules. I should have known. My focus wasn't there. I paid the price. So I think why people don't stay funded is it's very hard, especially in today's day and age, to stay focused on something like this. It's like, especially when you've got TikTok and social media chopping away at your attention span, making it harder to stay focused on tasks. So it's like society in a way is making it harder to be a good trader. You've got to block that stuff out and tune into your focus ability, I think, if you want to stay funded. It does start with risk control, like you said, because I think if you're focused on risk control first, you never lose the funded account. If I was really focused on risk control when I made that mistake, I never would have been in the trade on a Friday. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. But it's a chicken and egg story, right? Because in order to get the funded account, you have to get aggressive. In order to keep the funded account, you got to stay defensive. And in the perfect world, you got to just be even at all times so that the level of aggression and defensiveness is the same in the funding phases and in the real phase, which is a Zen state that we all try to seek.
I would agree with that to an extent because I actually look at it slightly different, where in the first phase, what I've been telling guys to do, if you're in phase 1 or phase 2 of that test, phase 1, you should have the most risk per trade that you will throughout the entire process. Because again, like you said, the goal is when I'm in phase 1, I need to pass this challenge. I have a target to hit in a time frame. It's hard. But once I'm funded, the goal is not to make every penny of every move. It's to keep the capital and grow it month on month on month to pay money, to pull money from the market. So different risk is needed, I think. Like I have guys that I've seen put, 0.5% on their best trades when they're funded. And then when those guys are taking that funded challenge, they're putting 1% on that same trade, doubling the risk because they need to slam on it. So yeah, I think you can plan that out though. I push people to say like, build a plan, say what you're going to do and know for phase 1, this is my max position size, my max daily loss. I'm going to kind of control that myself to give me the framework to say, once I get the funded account, now, even like this is a good example too. A lot of people will give guys like you and me, Boris, they give us slack when we close the trade at 1R or 2R because they're like, why don't you stay in it? It could go higher. Well, when I'm trying to get funded, my goal is not to catch all of every move. It's to win and not lose. So that way I pass the challenge. When I'm taking a funded challenge on that trade, I'm going to take the full profit at 2R. But my argument, or to some guys, what I'll say to them is, hey, if you want to be the kind of trader that catches runners like Nick at that 2R level, once you get funded, maybe then, and of course, 2R is subjective based on your strategy. It'll be a different R. But once you get there, leave 10% or 20% of the position. Just take 70% of the trade off and realize those gains. And then you can still leave some on to run because now you're funded. And even if it's a little piece, if it runs all week, like I've seen Nick catch, it's still more money,
No, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But of course, it's easier said than done. So this brings me to Nick, and I kind of want to ask you sort of our subject number 2. What would you say to traders who don't want to adapt their strategy, which, by the way, is you? Like, you have an edge. The most important thing is to have the confidence in your edge, right? Because I was just thinking that there's 2 things we do. We trade our strategy and we trade ourselves. And you really need to know how to do both to be effective. Like you have to know your strategy and you have to know all the ways you're going to screw up your strategy every single day. One of the reasons why I love day trading is because I have 10 samples a day of my mistakes every day. So it builds up a database very fast of all of my errors, helps me to correct, as I go along much faster. So what about you? Like sort of what would you say to traders who don't want to adapt their strategy to the rules of the prop firm. I know what I would say, but I'd love to hear what you would say.
Well, Boris, I kind of know what you would say also, because there's a video on your channel that I saved in a private playlist. It's a video on how to spot real traders versus fake ones. You made it about a year plus ago.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, that video was great because it was like a detail by detail how to spot it. And it was so true, because one of the things that you said is that a real trader will voluntarily immediately tell you the weaknesses of their strategy. Fake trader, they'll only ever tout what they're great at and how amazing they are. And look, I caught this trade and that trade and this, that, for me, I've been doing this a long time, just like you guys, and we've spent a lot of time curating the methodologies that we look for. As much as I would like to, think that I could probably change my methodology a little bit to fit more of a prop firm, it's shaky grounds for me. Like my edge, what I've worked so hard to sort of develop in my studies, my back testing, all that sort of stuff. I've found that after a long period of time and kind of just analyzing my approach compared to prop firms, I realized it's not super aligned because I need the market to make a decision that I can't make on my own. I need the market to pick up in volatility and accelerate one direction. And I'm holding on to something. And, just by the nature of trailing stops, maybe an argument. And I get this comment all the time, by the way, on my trading videos where, I'll take a trade, let's say it's a long trade. It starts shooting to the upside on the pound or whatever. And I trail a stop and I lock in a little bit of profit, comes back and tags me for a little bit of profit.
I effing hate trailing stops, but go ahead.
I'm sure you do. And guess what? My audience does too, because I get the comment immediately. The video comes out and people are saying, why didn't you lock in some profits? Why didn't you close out the trade? Why didn't, you saw this, you saw that. It's like, the hindsight. Another thing to quote your video, you pointed out that traders that will, the Twitter traders, the social media traders, that only ever speak in hindsight.
Right.
And, you pointed out.
Look what I did yesterday. I'm not interested. Like, call me what you're going to do tomorrow. That's
exactly. Right. Yeah. And so, I just think I use a trailing stop, and I know it's a very hated methodology because it kills your win rate, but it allows you to stay into the right.
And so that's the interesting part. It's like you see a future that few people see because there, we have like 10 samples of getting stopped out, but the 2 samples that go 10 are that nobody has the patience for, and you have the patience to do that. So I'm going to just interject my own opinion. I'd love to see. My view is that if you're don't adapt your strategy to a prop firm. Find the prop firm that will be flexible to your strategy. And there's so many prop firms now. There's so many variations on the theme. There's so many offerings now that, believe me, they exist. I'm even thinking there are prop firms. I mean, we work with a prop firm. I don't want to pump anybody right now because we're trying to be very neutral, but work with a prop firm where a lot of their methodology would be very suitable to you because they don't have a timestamp. One of the worst things for a long-term trader is you got to pass it in a month. They don't have any time conditions on it, which is great. But they don't let you hold over the weekend, which would be bad for you. But they have a special option where you could purchase essentially the ability to hold over the weekend. And if you're confident in that, you can modify the rules of a prop trading firm to suit your strategy. You're in a much better financial and mental shape than try to find the nearest one with the least amount of cost to try to pass it. Because
that's a great point.
Even if you
I think that we discussed this a little bit last time, but it's so true. First we discussed the first thing I think you need to do is focus on a demo account, on a small account, whatever. Get profitable, find your edge, and then you made the point as a person and as a strategy. Find what works for you, and then there's that next layer that we briefly touched on in our last conversation about finding the right prop firm, and you just added to it right there, which that by itself is a skill set that takes time to develop. You have to explore a lot. You have to dig through a lot of different prop firms and terms of services and this and that and what you want out of it, and suit it to that style. I think if you're trying to go the other way, where you're trying to say, well, let me find this, I like this prop firm, let me change everything I'm doing to fit that prop firm, I think that's a tough way to approach it. So for me, if I was trying to get funded and I had a strategy like mine where I rely on the market to make a decision and I try and trail stops and follow what the market's doing. If that's my approach, then I need to find a prop firm that suits that methodology, allows me to hold over weekends, allows me to, not have such a high time constraint, which is a high order to fill. So that's kind of where my not gripe with prop firms is, but just my hesitation is like, I don't want to have to change what it's working for me to actually get funded. That's where, by all means, there might be a way to tweak and test and find a way to, manipulate. I know, like Austin said, he was like, changing it up just a little bit slightly to lock in those profits and to move on. And you guys have like I said, a different style. There's so many different profitable ways in the market. It's just finding that right arrangement for yourself that works.
Well, Austin, you're sort of a master of the subject on this. I'm just wondering if you could chime in both on whether you agree that you want to find a prop firm that suits your style, and then more importantly, having passed a lot of challenges, probably done, and knowing you, I know you're a guy who likes to do research. I'm sure you've done a research on 1,000 prop firms. What is your best of list? I would love to know, what would you look for in a prop offering that really you think stands out from the competition? What would be your ideal prop firm?
Well, I definitely agree with you guys that you're better off going with a firm that the rules are already set, that tailor to the way you trade, rather than going to a firm just because you like it or they pay out in a cool crypto that you want to get paid out in, right? So
wait, I'm sorry. Is this 221?
So to answer your question, Boris, about what I'm looking for, I like to see first, like, you have to have payout proof. My big thing, because like Nick and I have both been traders for a long time. I knew of prop firms as long as I've been a trader almost. Like I even worked for one at a time. So they have been around for a long time, but it's been very hard to find reliable ones. Now it's gotten much different. Now so many people have taken these challenges and so many people have passed. There's proof out there. There should be validation that they pay out. So that would be the first thing.
So can I just stop you on that, because on the side point, because and Nick chime in if because it's an interesting point I meant to ask you guys earlier today. Does it really matter if the prop firm pays out? Let's say if the prop firm trades real capital or it trades demo capital, as long as it pays out real dollars to you. I
have a strong opinion that's completely.
I could tell. You go first, Nick. I could tell he's ready to jump.
Nick is itching to answer that.
So I did some research. I actually put out a documentary style with my team.
The documentary, yes.
Yeah, the documentary.
That's about documentary.
So I would say yes, because, and okay, it was a 20-minute video. Probably there's like 30 comments by now that are probably like, keep it shorter than this, you jerk. Why did this have to be 20 minutes? I get it. The shortest answer I can come up with, the reason I would say yes, it does matter, is because if you're only trading hypothetical money, really what you're trading is the prop firm's money. Your loss is their gain is your loss. I don't know about you, but I don't want to go into partnership with somebody who wants me to lose, because they want you to take lots of challenges. They want to make it difficult for you. There's pushback on you. And if there is if you're working with a prop firm that does not pass your trades to live money, there's no liquidity provider on the back end. If that is the case, then a Grand Slam trader that comes in there, or several Grand Slam traders, or lots of traders, depending on the size of the firm and et cetera, how much capital they have. If there's ever a threat to the business, this has happened in the past. Again, you could do your research. There's I don't want to name drop, but it's happened more than once. The house falls apart. The house of cards, it's a Ponzi scheme model that's scary. So, and one way I would say in my documentary, I touch on this is, look at the jurisdiction of where these companies are based. Are they in a place where they're a safe to third-party business? Just like when you're analyzing a brokerage, if you don't want to put $100,000 with an unregulated, sketchy broker. And just to be the bad guy too, if somebody sends out payouts, in a Ponzi scheme method, there are plenty of examples of people getting paid out before the whole thing crumbles. It's a model to show legitimacy, and that's a whole nother thing. That's just my
so I take your point all too hard, and I'd love to hear Austin, because Austin and I think have a little bit more of a jaundiced view of this whole thing, which is basically, it's not our money. It's just a one-time fee. It may be a Ponzi scheme essentially, in the sense that the money is coming from the fees of other people and they're just paying you out. But as long as the party lasts, you're actually, there is no downside to you. It's like a call option. You pay them $1,000. Maybe you have like 10 months of drawing down $5,000 a month out of them. they can't get their money
That's
back.
fair. That's fair.
So being the cynical East Coast people,
That's how we roll.
Coming from Philly and New York, that's our natural inclination.
We're all
whatever. So long as the debit hits, we're fine. But
right. That's how I feel, because like I was stubborn for a long time. I totally agree with Nick on like the morality side of Nick's point. Yes. I totally agree. I'm a boy of morals as well.
You're from Philly, please.
Come on. So I totally agree with Nick there, but I also heard a quote that I'm trying to like somewhat live my life by, which is you don't need to know everything about an investment or an opportunity to make money from it. And I'm sitting on the sideline watching James, the guy I trade with every day, get payouts, 20K, 10K, 15K a month. And I'm like, you know what? All my own money is at risk when I'm trading my capital. The downside of me trying this and seeing if I can get funded and get paid out is time. I am lucky like Nick. I have other money coming in from other things, so I don't need the money from my own personal account next week. So I can let that sit. I could do this demo challenge and see if it's legit. So from my perspective of the only cost being time, I'm a young guy. I know I got this beard, but I'm a young guy. I got time. They could go out of business and I could go to the next reliable one that was there. But where I would feel stupid, and this is where my point, and I know this is you as well, Boris, regret sucks. Like you never want to regret things. Am I going to regret it more if I try and I get paid out and I make some money and then it does shut down and it comes down like you're saying, but I made money along the way like James? Or am I going to let him make all the money and I just am sitting here twiddling my thumbs? And like in the future, I could look back on that and say, I could have made some money there, So I think that's where it's like 51% I'm there, 49% I'm with Nick.
Just remember, you think about it, your time is only 1 month, right? If the payouts are on a monthly basis, you kind of like, you're pulling it. If the first month is bad, that's a bad.
And even in that, I meant time in sense of like time of not trading my own account to trade the challenge, right?
A month. I could see that.
A month, 2 months.
So that also, so Austin, that sort of brings me to like let's create the perfect prop trading firm, and also more interesting, the perfect prop trading strategy, which I think to you is that don't have a few of them. Now, your whole idea is to have a portfolio of prop accounts precisely for this reason, because you want to diversify your risk and diversify your counter. Because if you think about a prop firm as a counterparty, that's exactly what we all do in the markets.
Like if you're super like Boris, if you got Boris money and you've got hundreds of millions of dollars out here, you're not going to put it all at Wells Fargo. You're going to put some at this bank.
I would never put $1 in Wells Fargo. I hate that scummy bank.
But my point is, you would never dump it all in one place. So like you would never do that, you would never want to just rely on one prop firm, especially once you pass one challenge. The confidence boost you get from that, you can easily say, well, I've done it. Just like I always think of Roger Bannister. No one could do a 4-minute mile. This guy does it, then everybody does it. Yeah. It's the same thing. Once you get that confidence of passing a challenge, then you're like at this level of like, okay, yes, they could shut down at any time. So now what do I do to keep myself as a funded trader no matter what? A remote funded retail trader. How do I do that? I get funded from a couple of these companies. Mainly, I like to think 2 or 3 is plenty. And then you go from there. You don't need to worry about having 10 of them. Like 10 of them are going to go down at once. We're probably in civil war. You need bullets now, not pips. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. At that point, you got bigger things to worry about. So let's sort of nail it down to top 3 best properties or best aspects of a prop firm.
Sure.
I'll start with Nick. You give me your top 3, and then Austin gives me top 3.
Top 3. So do you mean
top 3 rules? Let's assume these are all legitimate firms. They all trade real money. They're all, they're honest. Their word is their bond. More importantly, top 3 aspects, like top 3 rule sets or top 3 structures of how they do it that you would like to see to make you want to trade.
I could give you a couple.
Yeah, I know you could. I'm just giving
Austin next, because you probably honestly this is more Austin because he's got definitely more experience actually working with them. Just from an outsider, I will say too, like even though I haven't spent a tremendous amount of time trying to get funded or being a funded trader or anything like that, all of us to a degree have probably interacted with prop firms, whether it be trying to partnership, this, that, and the other. So I think what matters to me, if I'm just suiting it to myself, is going back to some of the tips that you guys gave me, which I thought were really smart, which were like, something for me would be, I need not a really strict time limit because I don't know, just to my style that we talked about. For me, a drawdown percentages that make sense might be maybe the 5 and 10 model is fine. And then, if we're barring like the legitimacy factor, which to me is important. Also, by the way, one side thing I would say that with that is you guys made good points, like monthly payouts. I would say a lot of times some of them will say like, oh, you can just not take a payout and keep that capital to trade with in your
That's,
account.
like,
take the payout. Just take the payout.
Let me tell you, nobody from New York or Philly would ever keep the money in house. You always take the money.
Yeah, take that money out of there just in case. You just never know.
We always take the money. I take the money
yeah.
and everything. My rule in life is always take the money.
Take the money.
The second that party stops, the second they say, okay, no longer, we're gonna have to revoke all your funded accounts, which has happened. There's been several names. You got to be careful. So, anyways, the drawdown limits, no time limits, and then holding over a weekend for me is kind of a must, just because I'm a
excellent. I think those are really excellent points. What about you, Austin?
No, Nick hit it good. So I would say one of the firms that I'm working with does not allow weekend holds. That's a bother. So I would say if we're building the best prop firm, weekend holds is a must.
Right.
Assets to trade, I think, is important. I'd like to see
good point.
Forex, crypto, indices, and stocks. Like I'd like to see all of it. I'd like the opportunity to play the whole thing. Right now, there's very few of them that offer all of it. Some offer just Forex, some offer just stocks, some are just this.
That's a great point. And right now we're in a super volatile environment in Forex, so it's easy to make 1,000 pips in dollar yen every single hour. But we were old enough to remember when dollar yen was trading 10 pips a day at 80,
right.
85.
Yeah,
85.
it's
and
wild.
Having
right now.
instrument set is so valuable.
Yep. And I would say spreads. So a lot of guys that are working with multiple different firms, you're getting different spreads, which makes it a little bit tricky sometimes.
Great point.
Great spreads is a must. Yeah, you
got sort of reasonable and steady spreads. So you're not going to be like you suddenly you're pip from Target and all of a sudden it goes 5 wide against you.
Worse than that, I would like that happens. Worse than that is I don't want to see things. And that would be spread. Now, maybe I'm speaking in terms of liquidity. I don't want to see my pricing stop for more than a fucking second. Sorry for the curse word. I don't want to see it stop for 15 minutes, let alone a few hours.
Oh, you mean just actually the price quoting stop? Yeah,
price quoting stops.
That's been a function of crypto more than anything else. But I don't know if you've seen it in other markets. I mean, crypto is kind of its own little debilitated baby. But
exactly.
But other markets should be. You're absolutely right. They should be quoting continuously because all those other markets have an underlying real market that's quoting continuously. There's there's no.
That's what I'm saying. Liquidity is a must. If it's too dry, just stay away.
These are excellent points. I got to tell you guys, thank you. Those are probably some of the best points. I want to just review before we go. I know we're a little bit over time, but it's really worthwhile. So I think the top 5 takeaways from Austin and Nick, if we're going to combine it, is no time limit if we can get it, right? The ability to hold over the weekend, which is really important for a lot of sort of longer term, maybe swing based traders. The ability to trade a reasonable, 10% up, 5% down, reasonable drawdown, levels, nothing too tight. As a matter of fact, even wider than that would be better. And the ability to trade a wide variety of instruments, because some markets die out, other markets revive, and you want to be able to trade the active market, especially if you're trading prop. There's nothing worse than being in a dead market while you're trying to trade a prop account. And last, but very much not least, because I think people take it for granted because spreads have been so, in real environments, spreads have been just very, very good, is that you need to make sure that when you're actually trading on a prop account, the execution of spreads is the exact same as it would be in that real brokerage account, that there isn't any kind of discontinuity that could be disfavorable to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So I think those are really great takeaways in today's show for what we'd be looking for in a good prop firm. Obviously, with the underlying assumption that these are honorable people that are actually going to be trading real capital, because we've all, we showed you the downsides with all of our, skeptical and sarcastic views aside.
Our East Coast attitude.
Our East Coast attitude aside. But most importantly, also, what's the final thing you want to say to him? Take the money and run. Never leave the money in the house, right? Take the chips off the table, walk out of the casino, my friend. That's the easiest way to give it all back. Anyways, it's been great, guys. You've been awesome as always. Thank you so much for your insights.
Absolutely.
Your analysis. We're going to keep doing the prop trading shows, I think, because they've been so popular. People really, really want to hear more about this, and the wealth of information that you guys bring to it, I think, is really helpful to somebody who's new and just kind of trying to understand what is this all about, and how do I make the best out of this possible situation. So again, thank you so much. This is Boris Schlossberg. Please follow us on Trading Battle. We're going to have live trading battles. I'm gonna probably go toe to toe against both of these guys one of these days.
Yes, we need that. You and Kathy versus me and Nick.
Put us to shame. Put us to shame,
Yes.
boys.
Come on, boys. You and Kathy versus me and Nick. Let's go.
I think we're gonna do this. This will be the ultimate trading battle channel. Is we're gonna, in 1 hour, you have to pass a prop trading account.
Sounds good, Boris. We're doing it. Sounds good.
That's it. We're gonna break every rule possible. But anyways, I want to thank you guys both. It's been a great show. Thank you very much, everybody. Follow us on a trading battle, and I will see you guys in the markets. This is Boris Schlossberg for a trading battle over and out.